Good morning or afternoon, third years. Lovely to have you online in some way, shape, or form. This is your second lesson for this week, and it is focusing on the impact that drugs can and do have for people and society in Scotland. Our success criteria is still the same because we're looking at the impact that alcohol and drug misuse has on people. Your first question to just get you thinking, why do people turn to drugs? A bit like last lesson, I would like you to think about the kind of non-illegal ones as well. So it may be necessity, it may be to save their life, to stop pain. However, they may turn to illegal drugs for a variety of reasons as well. One of the big arguments at the moment that's been going on for a few years actually is, do people turn to drugs for a set reason that actually we could stop that becoming a problem before they turn to drugs? So if it's because they're facing a family crisis, actually if we solve that family crisis, does it stop someone having to resort to taking serious drugs which are against the law? Today, I can hear you groaning. You're going to be using some literacy skills and numeracy skills. Don't worry, I've kept it quite straightforward with lots of help throughout for you guys as well. And we're looking at drugs linked to inequality. Now, when we putting this together, I looked up some recent facts. So this is all as up to date as I could get. Most facts are from the year 2019 or 2020 because we don't have anything much newer than that yet. We know that 54% of drug-related hospital admissions, so that's over half of people sent to hospital because of drugs, were patients who had been living in the 20% most deprived areas. Basically, over half of the people in hospital because of drugs came from the poorest section of our society. That's really dangerous. And people might think it's weird that how can they be in poverty and buy drugs? But unfortunately, that addiction cycle kicks in. There are a few questions here, and all I want you to do is take a look at the map that you see there. That is to do with the death rate that is highest in what we call urban areas. Urban, remember, is big built-up cities. This should be quite straightforward. So which areas have more people dying from drugs? The darker the colour of the map, the more people die from drugs. All you have to do is tell me the city or a rough area. For example, is it the east of Scotland, the west of Scotland? Is there a particular city you could name? So the darker it is, the more people die because of drugs. Then, does this surprise you? Well, does it? Would you expect that to be the answer? And question 3, why do you think those areas have more deaths? That one is more aimed at level 4 students. Now, men are more than twice as likely to turn to drugs than women. And we know that the average drug offender commits about 257 offences in 1 year. So that means if someone is a recurring addict, as in they use drugs quite a lot, they're likely to commit over 250 offences, be that the drugs themselves, stealing to afford the drugs, stealing to pay their dealer. It may be dealing, selling to underagers, getting underagers involved in drug trafficking, things like that. We know that drug misuse also costs the UK about £3.5 billion per year. That is a lot. And you may have seen in the news recently that drug deaths in Scotland are awful. What I mean by that is more people die in Scotland because of drugs than in any other European city. That is true. Drug deaths in Scotland have been bad for a long time. This is not new, okay? Dundee used to be known as the drug capital of Europe. And I can hear some of you just now, kind of laughing at that and going, oh, I'm not surprised. However, it's actually quite a scary statistic. The graph that you have there on this slide shows you that in Scotland, okay, for every 1 million people that we have in Scotland, almost 300 of those will die because of drugs. Now, that doesn't sound a lot, okay? Out of 1 million people, just under 300 die from drugs. However, second place out of the whole of Europe, and I know we've left the European Union, but of all of Europe, Sweden only has about 80 deaths per million people. So think about that. 1 million people in the UK, just under 300 die because of drugs. Sweden, 1 million people, about 80 die. That is enormous, and it is really, really dangerous and worrying. If you look at that graph, it shows you the difference. Now, this is an extension task. If anyone is interested in this and finding out some of the causes, you can click the link that I've put on the slide there. Otherwise, there's a question here for you about drugs and the NHS. The last thing I'm going to get you to do today, folks, is to have a think about whether we should legalise certain drugs. Some people in Scotland believe that actually if you make drugs legal, so for example, cannabis, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, that actually it kind of takes the taboo out of it because it's not illegal anymore. So maybe less people would use it, or maybe it would mean that the government could check what's in the substances. Just now, if someone buys drugs, it could be brick powder, like you don't know what's in it. If we made them legal, you could check like the quality of them. It also means the government can make money from them, a bit like they do with selling cigarettes. The government gets money in tax that they can then use to go towards the NHS. However, other people think that legalising drugs just is not a good idea. It's going to create more addiction, more paranoia, more problems for the NHS. Some people say it's just going to make things like arguments, family fallouts more common, that it's going to be dangerous to children, that, you know, alcohol and smoking's already got a significant pressure on our NHS. This is going to make it worse. Thinking about what we've done today, so the little bit on drugs we've done today, I would like you to choose any one of these questions that are on the slide. So you're choosing either drugs should be made legal to save the NHS money, or cannabis should be legalised in the UK for medical use only. Pick one of those. I want you to think whether you agree or disagree with one of those statements. This is your opinion, okay? There is no right or wrong answer here, but what we are interested in as teachers are your reasons why. This is about giving evidence to back up your view, justifying a decision. That is a really, really important skill that you'll need for National Modern next year. So as your teachers, we don't mind if you say, I agree with this because, or I disagree with this because. For level 3, I'm wanting 2 reasons why you think that and at least 1 fact to back up your points. So 1 statistic, 1 number, 1 percentage. For level 4, you need 2 solid reasons and at least 2 facts or statistics. Those that are level 4, potentially even aiming for level 5, national 5 level, will have quite strong answers for this. But I've left it quite open depending on the time that you have this week, because I know online learning can be quite stressful and busy. You can do this in a jotter or on paper if you prefer to write it. You can do this on the slide, or if you prefer to do it on a Google Doc, that's not a problem. All I would ask is that in this box, you copy the Google Doc link you wrote it on, but please make sure your teacher has access. Check your share permissions to make sure your teacher can read it to mark it for you, okay? I am not putting a length limit on this, but I would recommend that you take about 15 to 20 minutes. If you get really into this, because some of you will find this fascinating, please feel free to do more, but you do not have to. So there are a couple of slides for answers today, and then a final finishing off. What I would say is, if you spent ages on your arguments for or against, you can miss this end bit, okay? So if you spent 20, 25 minutes doing research and things, skip the end bit. That is not a problem at all. Hopefully that helps you a little bit go through what's expected for you. So this week we've covered the impact of alcohol and drugs. Next week, we're going to look at the impact of obesity and also money. This is all kind of coming under the lifestyle choice banner. And then from there, we'll be able to evaluate which one we think has the biggest impact. See you soon.